Chapter 4, Signs of Dyslexia. What is dyslexia? Dys means difficulty, and lexia means words. There is one thing to be said about dyslexia. No two people present in the same way. The most common thing about dyslexia is that everyone is affected by it differently. Dyslexia is as unique as our fingerprints are. With that being said, you can often find a handful of traits that are common among dyslexic people. It is a brain-based learning difference that specifically impairs a person's ability to spell and read. Dyslexia refers to a cluster of symptoms that results in people having difficulties with specific language skills, particularly reading. If you were to look at an image of brain activity, you'll find the brain of a dyslexic person doesn't light up in 3 areas when they are reading, which are lit up in that of a typical brain. Interestingly enough, some dyslexics don't struggle with reading at all, only spelling. Dyslexic people are usually very bright and have average or above average IQs. I have worked with a few students who are 2E, twice exceptional. Their IQs are that of a genius level, yet faced with significant reading struggles. In my experience, being dyslexic is hardest on them because they know how bright they are and can't understand why it is such a challenge for them to learn to read. They become very frustrated and upset with themselves for trying and failing to learn to read. Students with dyslexia often experience difficulties with both oral and written language skills, such as writing and correctly pronouncing words. Dyslexia affects individuals throughout their entire lives, not just academically. Dyslexia does not go away. Its impact changes at different stages of a person's life. With proper intervention, you or your child can learn how to become successful at reading and spelling at any age. Below is a list of common characteristics of dyslexia. When looking at the lists, please remember: 1. No student will have all the signs. 2. Many individuals display several signs without directly being affected. 3. Some signs are more common than others. 4. The number of indicators observed in an individual does not indicate whether their dyslexia is mild, moderate, profound, or severe. It is often said that with dyslexia, it is not that people learn slowly, but instead that they forget quickly. If you or your child have at least 3 of these signs, it is probably caused by dyslexia. Some signs are stronger indicators than others. For example, a relative with dyslexia is going to carry much more weight than a child having frequent ear infections. Common signs of dyslexia. In preschool: delayed speech, mixing up the sounds and syllables in long words, chronic ear infection, constant confusion of left versus right, late establishment of dominant hand, difficulty learning to tie shoes, trouble memorizing their address, phone number, or the alphabet, can't create words that rhyme, slow to add new vocabulary, exhibits delays in acquiring emergent literacy skills, understanding that written language, reading from left to right, spacing, discriminating between letters, words, and sentences. Experiences problems learning the alphabet. Has trouble learning numbers, days of the week, colors, and shapes. Has trouble learning to write and spell his or her own name. Is unable to follow multi-step directions or routines. May have difficulty telling and or retelling a story in the correct sequence. Has a close relative with dyslexia. In elementary school: dysgraphia, slow, non-automatic handwriting that is difficult to read. letter or number reversals continuing past the end of first grade. Extreme difficulty learning cursive, slow, choppy, inaccurate reading, guessing a word based on shape or context, skips or misreads prepositions at, to, of, ignores suffixes, has difficulty separating words into sounds and blending sounds to form words, confuses small or easy words, at, to, said, and, does, goes, has continued difficulty reading text aloud or silently, can't sound out unknown words, terrible spelling, often can't remember sight words, they, were, does, or homonyms, there, and there, difficulty telling time with an analog clock, relying heavily on memorizing without understanding, difficulty with math, memorizing multiplication tables, memorizing a sequence of steps, when speaking, difficulty finding the correct word to use, says lots of whatchamacallits and thingies, common sayings come out slightly off, extremely messy bedroom, backpack, and desk, dread going to school, doing schoolwork or homework, complains of stomach aches or headaches, may have nightmares about school, may make constant reading and spelling errors, including letter reversals, examples, D for B, as in dog for bog, letter inversions, example, M for W, letter transpositions, example, felt and left, word reversals, example, tip for pit, word substitutions, example, house for home, forgets to bring in or hand in homework, has difficulty remembering what day or month it is, has difficulty remembering his, her own telephone number or birthday, has poor planning and organizational skills, has poor time management, lacks self-confidence, and has poor self-image. In high school, all the above symptoms plus limited vocabulary, has an inadequate store of knowledge due to lack of reading experience, continues to experience serious spelling difficulties, has slow, disfluent, or illegible handwriting, has better oral skills than writing skills, has difficulty planning, sequencing, and organizing written text, extremely poor written expression, large discrepancy between verbal skills and written compositions, unable to master a foreign language, difficulty reading printed music, poor grades in many classes, has trouble summarizing or outlining, has problems in taking notes and copying from the board, procrastinates and or avoids reading and writing tasks, does not complete assignments or classwork or does not hand them in, is slow in answering questions, especially open-ended ones, has poor memorization skills, still mispronounces or misuses some words, has problems recalling the names of some words or objects, might have dropped out of high school. In adulthood, all of the above symptoms plus slow reader, may have to read a page 2 or 3 times to understand it, difficulty with reading aloud, difficulty with reading unfamiliar material, tendency to mispronounce or misread words, slow pace of reading, reading for information only, not for pleasure, understanding more easily when listening than when reading, difficulty with spelling, finding it hard to visualize words or remember the sequence of letters in a word, difficulty with sentence construction and punctuation, difficulty putting information or thought on paper, difficulty in spotting mistakes made in written work, finding it easier to express thoughts in words than in writing, underachieving at school, particularly in exams, having immature or ill-formed handwriting, tendency to be clumsy and uncoordinated, finding it hard to remember things in sequence, difficulty in remembering new information or new names, misunderstands or passes on messages wrong, confusion with times, dates, and appointments, getting phone numbers wrong by perhaps reversing digits, making silly mistakes in calculations, having good or bad academic days, poor short-term memory, dreads writing memos or letters, still has difficulty with right versus left, often gets lost even in a familiar city, still confuses B, D, and P sometimes, especially when tired or sick, passes up an opportunity for a job promotion because fear of taking a test. Varying degrees of dyslexia. I think it is important to mention that dyslexia reveals itself in varying degrees. Dyslexia is a recessive gene, which in layman's terms means that you carry the gene from your parents to your children, but it may or may not directly affect you or your offspring. Blonde hair, hazel or blue eyes, straight hair, balding are all examples of recessive genes, traits. Mild dyslexia. If you are reading this, the person you are concerned about will likely not fall into this category. People who are mildly dyslexic typically go unidentified and don't seek out help. Their dyslexia is so mild, they usually have no clue they have it. And if they know they have dyslexia, it is probably because a close relative has a severe degree of it, and they happen to be knowledgeable about what dyslexia is. I would suspect my firstborn son, Chris, would be described as mildly dyslexic, because he presents characteristics of dyslexia, but has no substantial evidence of being dyslexic. Mild to moderate dyslexia. Mild to moderate dyslexia is a bit more pronounced than mild, but it is still most likely not someone who will seek out help. This person may feel like they struggled a little in school, but it wasn't enough to really affect their progress. My third son, Jacob, falls into this category. He has never received any special services or intervention. I fought very hard to get him a 504 for his dyslexia. Moderate dyslexia. Someone who is moderately dyslexic may exhibit some difficulties either early on in childhood, later in life, or at any point really. They most likely struggle some in school and could benefit from some extra help and classroom and homework accommodations. They may profit from one-on-one tutoring or instruction. After some appropriate training, they are likely to be able to finish school with average to good grades without the need of too much intervention. Remember, I was labeled as having a reading disability as a child, but I suspect this is where I fall in the spectrum of dyslexia. Moderate to severe dyslexia. This person is likely to struggle in school and will probably need extra help to succeed. They will definitely benefit from accommodations and tutoring or one-on-one instruction. If special attention is not given to this student, they will likely start to fall further and further behind in school. The kids who keep us up at night wondering, what is going on? They are so smart, but they don't get what the lesson was about. They try and try to read but can't grasp it. They are typically pulled out of class for special ed services, but they still aren't making any progress. This is where my youngest son is on the dyslexia spectrum. Severe to profound dyslexia. This is where the line becomes blurred to the severity between severe and profound. Profound dyslexia. This is the student who is struggling so much you don't know what to do. Absolutely nothing the school does helps. They can't grasp it. They can't spell for their life. They are stressed out and embarrassed by the fact that they can't get it. They think they are stupid and will never learn to read or spell. They just want to be done with school. This is where my daughter and my husband fall on the spectrum of dyslexia. We have helped several clients from children to adults who fall into this category, and you can expect them to learn to read and spell, but you need to have more patience with them, because most of the time it takes them longer to remember the details. Spoiler alert, these people can learn to read and spell too.